Welcome to week 3 of February, where I am using this book by Aurora Kane and letting whatever page I land on to decide what the theme of the day is. If you missed my previous videos, both parts will be in the description down below, and if you're caught up, thank you. And here is week 3. For day 15, we got the shiitake mushroom. Highly prized for its distinct smoky, earthy, umami flavor and firm, meaty texture, making it an excellent stand-in for meat. It's also commonly known as the forest mushroom, king of mushrooms, oak mushroom, and perfume mushroom. And to take an excerpt from the book, this tan to dark mushroom with a wide cap is the predominant mushroom used in Japanese and Chinese cooking. Additionally, in Japanese culture, shiitake was believed to be a potent aphrodisiac. So revered was it that it is frequently depicted being held by deities in ancient tapestries, artwork, and manuscripts. Its history in Asian folk medicine is long and its healing powers wide-ranging. Even today, in many parts of Asia, shiitake is regarded as a medicinal food and eaten regularly as part of a daily diet. So of course, considering that the actual mushroom itself is very simple, that's pretty much, I made sure to keep it as simple as possible, and mostly using the coloring for the texture. And to continue into the lore I made up for this fae is, one of the most commonly found fae, these fairies are usually very friendly. They are well known for their medical knowledge and patience, and are even known for helping settle fairy feuds. They can be seen flying around in small groups or even in their small communities scattered around the world. They are not easily angered or bothered, but if you somehow anger one, your life will not be in danger. But do not be surprised if you are suddenly one of the few who cannot find this very common fairy. When everyone else around you can see them, communicate with them, or even seem to be receiving their help, you will never see one again. And may you never anger another fae. Very short and sweet, just like the mushroom. Moving on to day 16, we got the shaggy ink cap. You may have seen other designs of this before, and I was pretty excited when I ended up on the page for it. It says here it's edible only when it's young and within an hour or two of gathering, or it may self-destruct before your eyes, and never with alcohol. It's also commonly known as the inky cap, lawyer's wig, and shaggy mane. To take an excerpt from the book, the gills, white initially, turn pink, then eventually blacken and liquefy from the edges into a black inky mess, dripping slime and spores until the mushroom almost seems to melt, leaving behind the stem alone and the question as to whether or not it was ever really there. Rather than melt though, the mushroom is actually digesting itself in order to release its spores in a process called deliquescence. In fact, the liquid was used back in the 17th and 18th centuries as an ink substitute. It was even proposed that the ink, full of fungal spores, be used for important documents. Lack of any spores would clearly reveal a forgery. So I used that little ink fact and mixed it with the idea of a witch to make her. Just like the one before, I added texture through coloring, but I ended up changing a few more things by the end. I like how she ended up either way, and for the lore I made up, looks can be deceiving with these fairies. Most likely to be misunderstood but also underestimated, these fairies are not ones to cause harm, but they are not friendly either. They avoid many and hate to be bothered. Earning their trust is an uphill battle, but if you do manage to become friends, their loyalty knows no bounds. Their ink is relatively harmless and highly valuable. They are not fools, and you should never risk your friendship for selfish reasons. For the spores within their ink are still under their control, and trust issues are no joke. A simple and common phrase is usually said when anyone asks about these fae: never anger the witch. And for day 17, we got lion's mane. One I was pretty worried about because I wasn't 100% sure where I was going with this besides the basic, so basic I kept. And I think when it comes to these types of challenges, simple is usually better for every artist's sanity. It is edible with a taste. It's said that's similar to crab. That's interesting. It's also known as the bearded tooth, icicle mushroom, monkey's head, wild, old man's beard, that one makes sense, pom-pom, okay, tree hedge fungus, and Yamabu shiitake mushroom. Yeah, I'm keeping that one. To take an excerpt, barely even recognizable as a mushroom, this formidable tooth fungus gets its name from the long, white, shaggy, hair-like structures on its body that call to mind the magnificent male lion's mane. Though fierce in appearance, their texture is described as bendable like rubber, which, no. The mushroom itself looks a bit like cauliflower when cut into cross sections, with its mainly white to cream color speaking of clairvoyance and truth. Lion's mane is found in North America, Asia, and Europe from late summer into fall, typically growing on the hardwoods in old, established forests, especially oak and beech. This mushroom typically grows higher up on the tree than other mushrooms, which makes this rare beauty even harder to spot. Like I said earlier, simple was better with this one. I did look up lion's eyes for hers, because why wouldn't I? I probably should have looked up more information for all of these, but I was too far into majority of these drawings before I remembered research helps. So here we are. She was still fun, just a moment of, oh, this would probably have helped. But to go into the lore I made up, similar to lions, these fairies are usually found in groups, when they can be found. Because unlike lions, these fairies love to live in very high places. Rarely bothered, they tend to be pretty territorial. Most of the time they will leave you alone if you are on the outskirts of their territory. But the closer to the center you are, the higher the danger becomes. You will never see them coming, and you can be surprised at how strong a very small being can be. Ask any short person you know, especially in packs. The best way to see one unharmed is to follow them at a safe distance, once they are out of their territory. They are never alone, so if you ever see one on their own, go back the same way you came from. Moving on to day 18, we've got Earth Star. Another one I was surprised I never heard about before this. It is considered inedible and is also commonly known as collared Earth Star or true Earth Star. Okay, well, we are creative, I guess. And to take an excerpt from the book, there are more than 60 species of this uniquely shaped mushroom found in wooded areas the world over. Fruiting in fall, sometimes through winter, all feature a puffball-like spore sac that almost resembles an acorn held aloft like a treasure by the surrounding petals, or rays, of the mushroom that have peeled away from the sac, so the spores can catch the breeze or a raindrop in order to release. The petals form a star shape, which gives this easily recognizable mushroom its common name. Earth stars release their spores in a similar way to puffballs, hopefully landing in fertile conditions to produce more constellations of little Earth stars. Their slightly alien appearance may have inspired a 17th century botanical illustration, humorously called Fungus Anthropomorphis. I had a lot of fun with this one. I was pretty rough with her sketch, but her liner was way easier step. I think I entered a flow state with her because I was really surprised by how happy I was by the end. Especially when I got to color her. She was just really fun. So, on to the lore I made. These friendly fairies tend to be very kind and enjoy meeting others. Though they are outgoing, they are solitary fairies and tend to do their own things on their own. They are more likely to fly past you than to stop and talk, but they will if they are not busy. They enjoy company, but they are more of a silent presence. They are best known for predicting the weather, because their appearance tends to change depending on what the weather will be, just like their mushroom counterpart. Petals closed mean dry air, petals open mean rain incoming. The brighter the petals, the more likely the sun will be out, and the darker the petals, the closer the cold is. Anger won, and you deserve whatever is coming to you. Continuing with day 19, we got oyster mushroom. It is considered edible. The younger, smaller mushrooms are better and considered delicacies in many Asian cuisines. They have a mild licorice aroma and meaty texture. They're also commonly known as hirataki or oyster fungus. I feel like that one's a little confusing, but who am I to judge? To take an excerpt, oyster mushrooms can be found in their natural habitat year-round, in all seasons, but are particularly prolific in mild weather with sufficient rainfall. The oyster in the name comes from the graceful fan-shaped mushroom cap's resemblance to an oyster shell, and it has an odd habit of growing its stem, if there is one, a bit sideways from the cap. As a result, these mushrooms usually grow horizontally on the wood, frequently in impressive clusters. Though typically of light-colored hues of caramel and tan, oyster mushrooms can be found in a range of colors, including pink, which of course is the inspiration of the color for here. This one was pretty straightforward from sketch to finish. The most I spent time on was the texture of her gills. I probably could have done more, but I was afraid I would change her colors too much if I did. I wanted her to be more reddish than the Earth Star, but not as red as the Devil's Fingers from the last video. What do you think? And continuing on to the lore I made, usually found in very large groups, these fairies are very kind and peaceful. They are not the type of fae who would go up to someone, but they are not territorial, unless you start taking up space. They do not mind sharing their space, but if other creatures do not agree to share a space, they are now considered trespassers and will most likely be used as free space for their homes. Their homes can be attached to any surface, even if the surface moves. This is why their communities can be found on the backs of larger animals. They never mean harm, but communication is very important to them. And you. Moving on to day 20, we got Amethyst Deceiver. I was very excited for this one. It says here, caps are technically edible if positively identified, but the taste is nothing special. Their small size means you need a lot to make a meal. They can cause gastric upset. They will absorb arsenic from soil if present. So is it really worth it? I don't think so. Other common names is red cabbage fungus. Again, confusing. To take an excerpt from the book, straight out of a fairy tale, this diminutive beauty is a bit of a trickster personality. A stunning violet color when wet, the Amethyst Deceiver turns a rather pale gray, buff color, almost white, when dry, making identification tricky, and even more so considering the undulating changes in appearance as the mushroom ages, thus the Deceiver moniker. There really wasn't much information I used for her sketch, and I mostly ended up keeping her the same to the end. Except of course how her hands were, since I liked it better this way. Her name alone inspired her demeanor and design, which is why I added essentially the stems of the original fungus as jewelry. I didn't have much time to focus on anything, but I think she turned out pretty well. And for the lore I made up, friendly and cheerful, these fairies are very simple in every way, except for their appearance. Often mistaken as the stones they share a name with, they tend to be highly valuable to collectors. But do not feel pity, for they have grown used to this behavior, and most times they are captured, it is on purpose. There is a reason why, despite being sought after, no one owns one, at least not for long. For simple does not mean foolish, and they are truly a fairy that lives up to the myths of Fae. And for the last day of this week, day 21, we got Pink Wax Cap. It is edible but threatened, rare to find, and recommended to leave respectfully in place when found. It is also known as the Ballerina Wax Cap, Pink Ballerina, and Pink Meadow Cap. And this is another page with barely any information in the book, just like the Scarlet Elf Cap in the last video. So to take a very tiny excerpt, this delicate pastel pink dancer graces Europe's and especially the United Kingdom's natural fields and grasslands and churchyards from late summer through fall, which have been seeing a decline over the recent decades. As an unfortunate consequence, its survival is threatened due to loss of its natural habitat. It is on the red list in many places, meaning it is given legal protection from being disturbed in its natural habitat. Other similar species have been recorded in the United States and a few other places, but are not believed to be related. So yeah, this and the way it looks is why I decided to make her a ballerina kind of fae. I think you can tell that I spent a good amount of time on her pose, since I was trying to decide on what pose to use in general. And since I spent so long on the pose and line art, I spent less time on coloring. Was it a good call? Well, I guess you decide. Moving on to the lore I made, these fairies are very calm and friendly. They enjoy performing for others, so they are often found dancing around in the air, on the ground, and over water. They will dance anywhere. They are not easily angered, but they have no issues avoiding anyone that has upset them. Even stopping their dance to never let you have the honor to watch. Not even if you were the last being alive. They would rather dance alone than allow you to know they exist. You should be more concerned about the ones who wanted to watch these fairies dance, only to know that you were the reason they canceled their performance. And with that, we have completed week 3. This has been such a journey so far, and I'm really happy with a lot of these. I think my favorite of this week is day 18, with day 20 being a very close second, but I do really like day 15 as well. I think I would redesign day 21 just because I think I could do more with the ballerina idea if I had more time. But other than that, which was your favorite of this week? Heck, which days are your favorites so far? I would love to know. Has it changed or have they stayed the same? And if you missed any of the previous days, the links to their videos are in the description below, as I said earlier, but also every day is a short that you can also watch if you don't have a lot of time. Also, let me know if you guys want these fairies in my shop. I would love to have these in my shop. I'm really proud of them. I hope you're all having as much fun as I am, and I hope that you are looking forward to the last weekly video of February. It will be coming out next week, do not worry. But until then, like, comment, and subscribe, check out my shop, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. This seems rushed. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was rushing through this video, but challenges, time challenges, they are my enemy.